Hello there, my name is Steph, your friendly neighborhood yarn addict. This is Sia. And together we're going to show you how to make this really fun, very simple headband for beginners. I hope you enjoy it. Hello everybody. I'm going to begin by showing you the materials. And luckily knitting is pretty simple. We don't need very much. We need yarn and we need needles. This is a Malabrigo yarn single ply. It's one of my favorite yarns to use because it's 100% merino and it's very soft. This color is Arape. They have beautiful blends of colors, and to make a simple headband, this helps because it's already gonna create a pattern just with a color variation. These are size 10 needles for a light bulky yarn. So this is slightly more bulky than worsted weight, which is the most typical yarn you'd use. So I would probably use size 8 needles for that. I like to use circular needles all the time, even if I'm not making something circular. There's lots of reasons for that I can explain later. If anybody's interested, leave it in the comments below. Now the other thing we're going to need is a tapestry needle. Luckily, that's not very many materials to create something really cool, which is one thing I love about knitting. So let's get started. You're going to need to cast on first. You're going to leave a tail. This is called the long tail cast on of about 30 inches or so for this particular project. Better to have more than not enough. So I grab the yarn with these two fingers, and then so you have both strands. You hold them with these two fingers, and then they go like this on your index and thumb. Okay, you slip your needle this way, and watch carefully. First you grab this guy and then that guy. Okay, and that's your first 2 stitches. You can look at that again. Alright, so we have our yarn. I'm holding both strands with these fingers. Hold your needle, cast on, grab this guy like this. Okay, first 2 stitches, don't pull it too tight, leave it kind of loose. Alright, and then we keep going the same exact way. Pretty loose. We're casting on 20 stitches for this particular project. I have 18, 19, 20. Okay. You're going to have a little tail, and that's okay because we're going to weave in the ends at the end of our project. So then, spin it around. Your tail gets set aside. Okay, you're not using that. You're using, obviously, the strand of yarn that's attached to your ball, and it remains on the back of the work. So we get our other needle. We make sure that we isolate the tail to the side. So we're not using, that's not going to be our working yarn. This is our working yarn, obviously the one that's attached to our ball. And here we go. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways. I use continental knitting, which is a lot faster. Okay, it's a little bit harder to get used to, but if you learn this way, you're going to be a way faster knitter. So I highly recommend to try to learn this way, the continental way. So I usually just wrap my pinky, and then I hold the yarn like this. Alright, so we insert and go like that, and that's a stitch. So we're basically, we want to pull the little tail. Basically, knitting is just a bunch of loops, and it's amazing what you can create with it. Here is another demonstration. So you go like that from this side of the yarn, insert your needle, okay, wrap it around, and then pull it through, and then it comes off your left hand needle, okay. If that is too hard for you, you can start a different way, the non-continental way, and you insert right here, okay, and then you would grab your yarn, spin it around, and come this way. Again, try to keep it quite loose, alright? Just keep it consistent, but loose, not too tight. Otherwise, you're going to have a much harder time knitting. So again, insert, wrap it around, pull through, and that's all there is to it. So we're going to go ahead and complete this row. I'm going to switch back to my continental knitting. Okay, so we are at the end of the row now, and we're going to spin it around and do it all over again. Make sure your work is on the bottom. Make sure your yarn is on the back side of the work. You're going to insert the needle, wrap your yarn around, and pull through, okay? And then it comes off the left needle, okay? Once again. Pull through. I find that some beginners are you're gonna try to knit with just the tips, just a very short tip. And while you can do that, I think it's harder if you try to expose a bigger section of the needle. It's gonna make your knitting easier. Just always having a large portion of the tip exposed, because that's gonna keep your stitches from slipping off the needle and losing stitches, which you don't want to do because they're kind of hard to recover, especially if you're a beginner. Okay, so that's a little tip I can give you, is just use a big portion of the needle, 1 or 2 inches even, and that will also help keep your work loose. Third row, same thing. You make sure the yarn is on the back side of the work. All right. Insert, pull through. Again, for the continental style, I grab it from my pinky and then hold it up above the work, insert needle, slip it through. That is a lot faster, okay? But that's all there is to it, and you just keep on going until you have the length that you desire for your headband. This is what it looks like after several rows. Looks like I have about 22 rows done. And this is called the garter stitch. So it looks the same on the front and the back, or the right side or the wrong side, as we call it in knitting. So you can continue in this garter stitch for the whole headband. Okay, we're at a very exciting time of our headband progress, where we need to see what size to make it, how long to make it. So I could give you an inch amount, but that wouldn't be really accurate because every head is different, and my head could be smaller or bigger than yours. So the best thing to do is to just do a test fit. And as you can tell by now, the headband's very stretchy. So you don't want to overly stretch it, but you want to stretch it a little so that it can fit snugly with your head, okay? You don't want it too loose, and you don't want it too tight, okay? So for my head, it looks kind of like this. All right, so to show you, fit it like this, okay? And I have about this much left to make, which is probably 1 or 2 more inches. And that probably translates to about 6 more rows. So I'm gonna knit those 6 rows and then I'm gonna try it again and we will see. I have now finished the length of the headband that I want. And I'm gonna go ahead and measure it. And it looks like not stretched at all, okay? Just in its normal state. It's about 14.5 inches. Of course, like I said before, it's very stretchy. And I do stretch it a little bit when I fit it on my head, and that's how I want it. There are 2 different ways to finish this headband, okay? The straight look, that's just simply attaching the 2 ends together, okay? That one requires a Kitchener stitch. So I'm going to show you how we do that. We want to attach the 2 ends to each other. You're going to basically weave together the stitches from this end and the stitches from this end. So we're basically going to pick up some imaginary stitches from this end. We want to make sure the needles are on the same side. So I'm starting from this end and then my needle's going to end up on the same side as this needle. All right. So here we go. I'm going to pick up this first loop. You're basically picking up a loop, skipping one, picking up the next one, skipping one. You're basically picking up 1 loop from each stitch because you want to have the same numbers of stitches on each side. And now we count. I have the same number of stitches as on this side. And now we pick up our tapestry needle. We want to leave a pretty long tail. I would say at least 4 times the length, maybe 6 would be a good amount of tail. We weave in our tapestry needle. Okay, so we're working with both needles parallel to each other, right next to each other. And we begin by inserting this way, and then this way. Okay. Then we work off of the needle in front, and now we go the opposite direction. So instead of going from in here, we go in here. Okay, and we release it, and then we go that way. Now, opposite way on the top needle. This way first, and then this way. And make sure you're pulling it nice and tight. So what this is creating is you're basically making an imaginary knit row, but it happens to be joining these together. If there's times when it's a little bit hard to get your needle in this way, just insert it this way, pull this stitch down a little bit to make more room, and then insert. Okay, we are at the end, and you just keep working that way the whole way through. As you can see, it's quite the invisible ending. You can still tell a little bit but it's looking pretty good. Now it's time to weave in our ends. It looks like there might be a little bit of a gap here. If that happens to you, you can simply start weaving by attaching the yarn to that last stitch there, bringing it back to get rid of that hole. And you're just weaving your yarn in by inserting into existing stitches to make it disappear. We don't want to tie knots because knots could come apart and they also look ugly. Believe it or not, this does not come apart. And here you would go ahead and cut your yarn. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Usually you want to weave in ends on the wrong side of the work, or whatever is not going to be visible. In this case, this headband's kind of reversible, so it doesn't really matter. Once I reach about the middle of the headband, I'm going to go ahead and cut the yarn, and there it is. Your first knitted headband. Congratulations on making your very first knitted headband. I really like how this fits. It's going to keep my ears nice and warm, and it's very stylish, don't you think? Now I'm going to show you how to finish it the other way for a different style. We have finished the headband, and previously I showed you how to do the Kitchener stitch while we still had these open stitches. But this finish that I'm going to show you now requires us to bind off these stitches. We are simply just closing this end of the headband. So we knit one, we knit the next one, and then we just slip this stitch over the second one. Alright, and I'm going to show you again. So you go ahead and knit the stitch, okay, and then you grab this guy and you just pull it over that stitch like so. Alright, and then it slips off. You want to make sure it's kind of loose, alright? You don't want to make this super tight. And I help myself with the thumb, so as I grab this stitch to pull it over, I go ahead and grab that stitch with my thumb so that it doesn't slip on me. Once you do your last stitch, you ask yourself, what am I going to do with this loop? Well, you simply just pull it through after you cut a nice tail, kind of like I showed you on the last finish. This tail in particular is 6 times this length, and that should be plenty to do this next finish that I'm going to show you. So basically what we're doing is we're joining these two ends, okay, and we're going to make that nice finish that you saw. It's kind of a funky little scrunched up finish. So what we want to do is fold the ends like so, alright, and then we intertwine them with each other, making sure that the yarn that we're going to use is on the outer edge. Alright, so that's on the outer edge. We have our two sides right here, and we're just going to join them together like so, nice and snug, trying to make it as even as possible, like so. Alright, then we're going to grab our tapestry needle. I should have done this before, but I'm just going to set this aside for now. Get that tapestry needle on there. Okay, pick up my work here. Don't worry if you have little loops like this, we can kind of tuck them in. Take care of them later. Okay, and now we're just going to sew this all together. So since I have a little bit of an edge that sticks out right here, that's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and start here. And we basically want to make sure that we are on each thread that we do, we grab each of the 4 sides that we're trying to weave together, okay? So there's one, and then I'm going to move over a little bit to the left here. Make sure I am grabbing at least 1 loop from all 4 of the edges. 1 or 2 loops. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to come back to the right a little bit, just to do a little reinforcement. I'm getting at least 1 or 2 loops from each edge. Moving back to the left here. Kind of separate them a little bit just to make sure doing this correctly. Okay, back to the right. I've got kind of a rebellious loop here, and this rebellious loop is going to be on kind of the inside, so we're not going to worry too much, but if we were worried, I could just make a little loop like this, tuck it in on itself, like so. Cool. And there we go. We have our cool little scrunched up edge of the headband like this. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and weave in this end, just like I showed you for the previous style. I'm just going to work my way down the headband a little ways so that my weave can be a little longer. Probably want about 20 or 25 weaves. And now I'm ready to cut the yarn. All right, here we are with our cool new headband. All right, congratulations! You've just finished a really cool new headband. It's nice and warm, it's very comfortable, it's very stylish, I like it. This shape fits my face a little bit better because my forehead's really small, but both styles work really great. They're both going to keep me warm this winter, and they feel good. So congratulations, you've just learned how to make a very awesome and simple headband. And now you can check out some of my other videos to make slightly more complicated projects as you move along in your knitting career. And make sure you like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel because I'm going to keep posting a lot of really cool knitting tips, techniques, and entire projects for you.